Lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to talk about Love, Simon and why I have seen it 7 times in less than a month. Love, Simon is a defining moment in society. It is on par with when you think about Breakfast Club, you think automatically John Hughes, 1980s. When you think about Empire Records, you think automatically 1990s. When you think about Mean Girls, you think automatically 2000s. Love, Simon is that movie for the 2010s. That it's just what it's going to be. Simon is based off of a best-selling novel from 2015 called Simon vs. the Homo Sapien Agenda. I've never read it. I honestly don't want to read it because I love the movie so much. I don't want to read the book and go, oh, well, they could have added that. And like sometimes I'm a little particular with what I read. I love to read, but I'm particular. So the first time I saw it was a 7 p.m. showing, Thursday, March 15th. Got out of work, ran home, ate, showered. My friend picked me up. We went to go see it. He's big into indie music, so he was dying to see this movie because the soundtrack was released a couple months prior to the March 15th pre-shows. And he was so excited, and I was so excited because I'm a big fan of Nick Robinson, who plays Simon Spear in the movie. Nick Robinson has been acting for a very long time. I know him from the ABC Family original show, Melissa and Joey, starring Melissa Joan Hart and Joey Lawrence. He played Melissa's nephew, whose name I can't actually remember. Ryder, I think? Maybe I think his name was Ryder. Who knows? So I've been a fan of Nick's acting abilities for 8 years now because Melissa and Joey premiered, I believe, in 2010. He was in Jurassic World. He was in Kings of Summer. I think that was that other indie film he was in. He's been in other stuff since then, but I've always known his work. So when it was announced a little while ago, well, over a year ago, that Nick was going to play Simon, I was like, oh, great, this is going to be awesome. He's going to do a great job. You know, this closeted gay kid is going to come to find himself, and, you know, that's all the info I had. I didn't know how important this film was going to be until I watched it. Why I say that, and those of you who've been following me for the last month of me reviewing it every single time I've seen it over the last 7 times, it is important because when I was young, I didn't have a film like this to identify with. I didn't have that homosexual representation in a major motion picture. I didn't have something to look at and go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, because I'm actually, you know, you get to see it. You see all these movies, all these teen movies about all these, you know, straight couples, and that's great. But those of us who are not straight didn't have all of that ability, you know, to see these things. I mean, yes, we see these things on TV here and there, on certain TV shows, on different channels, but from a major motion picture studio, 20th Century Fox, to be the first production company to actually say, hey, the main character is going to be 17 years old, he's going to be gay, it's going to be based off of a best-selling book, there's obviously a fan base to it, it just makes sense. So it was a $17 million production for budget, and the last time I checked it's made over 38 million, I think, globally. So it's doubled what it was budgeted as, so clearly that's a successful movie. It's because people have wanted to see this. I've seen it 7 times. There's not been one time, whether I've been seeing it by myself, or if I was with a friend, or if I was with my parents, the audience's reaction is remarkable. These people that you don't know, these strangers that you're in a theater with, you know, you're experiencing this together. You're laughing together, you're crying together, you're gasping together. Obviously, if you've seen a Marvel movie, you're going to say, oh, well, that's happened. Anytime Spidey or Cap comes on the screen, or Bucky, you know, does something cool with Cap, or the sash that the two of them have. But that's a Marvel movie. That's a blockbuster movie. The Marvel movies are fantastic. Nothing can beat Marvel, obviously. But that's what a blockbuster movie is. This is a small $17 billion production. You know, this doesn't happen in stuff like that. You know, I'll talk about A Quiet Place, John Krasinski's A Quiet Place, later down the road, and that was the same kind of audience reaction that I'm referencing now. But when you know how when Andrew Garfield or Emma Stone cry in film, it's disgusting. right? There's snot coming out of their noses. The tears are just, it's just gross, and their eyes are puffy, and like they're gasping for air. Dylan O'Brien too. Another prime example. When they cry, you feel it. You know, like when you cry, and you have that pain in your chest, and you're gasping for air. Like you know what that feels like, and to see these actors, these actresses do that, it's remarkable. That's talent. That doesn't just happen overnight. That is a craft. It's an amazing ability that these people can do, and Nick Robinson does that as Simon Spear. When he gets that email, right? The email that obviously you're watching this review because you've seen this movie, right? So that final email when Blue says, "I know who you are, I can't do this anymore," and then Simon tries to reply, and then Google says, "Message failed permanently," and you feel it. You see Nick just broken. Nick as Simon, broken. And he this slime coming out of his nose, and he grabs his mouth, and he's crying, and he rubs his head, and you see the slime on his hand, and you just feel it, you know? And when you're in an audience with all these strangers, you hear the sniffles, and you hear the cries, and it's remarkable because come the end of the movie, when Blue actually reveals himself, and there's that whole beautiful Ferris wheel scene, everyone gasps and everyone applauds. I have never been to a film, a non-blockbuster film, that has elicited so much elation. That's the best way to explain that. It's kudos to the screenwriters, kudos to Greg, the director, for putting together this beautiful piece of work to give everyone in the LGBT community a sense of pride and a sense of realization that we're here, we're queer, we matter, we're not invisible, we exist, we're everywhere. And I think it's very important for kids to see this, because there could be a 12-year-old boy or girl questioning, oh, do I like boys, do I like girls? You're allowed to question. You're allowed to be inquisitive. You're allowed to stay quizzical. You know, you don't have to have an answer right now. And Simon's case was that. You know, he was questioning, but then he realized, and he wanted to make sure he had control over when he told and who he told, and that whole little speech he gives in that parking lot, which we see in the trailer. It hit me on a personal note, because when I first started to question my own sexuality decades ago, not decades, I'm exaggerating, probably a decade ago, I was only into girls, and I started to question because I met this guy in a chat room, and we were exchanging emails back and forth. This was before social media was a massive, massive thing. So, of course, naturally, I'm taking Simon to heart, because this is my life on screen. With the joy that Nick showed when Simon gets that email from Blue, that exhale, that yes, I got it, I can breathe now, and you know, sending it back and forth, and knowing that you're safe because you have that other person, and you love that person because you have that rapport. And yes, it might just be digital, but that's what matters right now. You're both questioning things, and you're both experiencing this moment, and that's what this movie is. This movie is a moment that is going to last forever. That people 20 years from now, are these kids in their late 30s, early 40s, are going to be directing the next set of blockbuster films, indie films, and someone's going to ask them, oh, what inspired you to start acting? What inspired you to start directing? And they're going to say, oh, well, you know, love Simon. You know, it was the story, and it was the cinematography, and it was the props and the scenery and the set design and the costume design and the actors, and all the actors did such an amazing job, and the director did such an amazing job, and it told a poetic story that everyone could relate to, because everyone deserves a great love story. We all do. And that's what the message was. That we can breathe. As Jennifer Garner tells Nick Robinson in the film, but you can breathe now, Simon. You deserve everything you want. And I think that's the greatest part about this movie. That this is going to live in infamy. And to those of you who have not seen it yet, if you're watching this and you haven't seen it yet, you need to see it, because it's important. it's important to every kind of human. Hateful, happy, doesn't matter. Everyone is entitled to happiness. Whether you have to fight as hard as you want or as little as possible. If things are just handed to you or if you actually need to go get it. You get to breathe now. And that's what's cool. So, my rating system, for those of you who have lasted this long, I'm giving Love, Simon 10 out of 10 volts. Rightfully so, because I almost choked up while I explained all this to you, as you can tell. So, yeah. Love, Simon. I approve. Mucho mahalo.